Hidden beneath the quiet rhythm of the natural world lies a society more organized than many human cities. Inside this, to the human eye, a honeybee may seem like a tiny creature moving from flower to flower. But every bee is part of something much larger.
Together, they form a living society built on cooperation, communication, sacrifice, and extraordinary biological instinct.
Every bee has a role, and every role matters.
Welcome to the marvelous society of the honeybee.
At the center of the colony is the queen. She is larger than every worker, but her importance is not simply measured by her size.
The workers constantly interact with her, feeding her, grooming her, and carrying chemical signals throughout the colony.
The queen does not command the hive like a human ruler. Instead, her presence helps maintain the biological unity of the colony.
Her greatest responsibility is reproduction. One tiny egg can become one new member of the colony. Inside the hive, life begins in the smallest possible form. Within days, the egg develops into a tiny larva. The larvae cannot feed themselves. Their survival depends entirely on the workers. Worker bees provide carefully prepared food, delivering nourishment again and again. This is the first lesson of the hive. No bee survives alone. Inside the colony, young workers begin their lives with simple but essential tasks. They clean the cells, remove waste, and prepare the hive for the next generation. Some workers become builders, producing wax from specialized glands on their bodies. Together, they transform soft wax into one of nature's most remarkable structures.
Thousands of tiny hexagons form a living architecture where food, young bees, and future generations can coexist.
But the colony cannot survive inside the hive alone. Every day, thousands of workers leave the hive in search of food. They collect nectar, the sugary energy source that powers the colony. And they gather pollen, rich in proteins needed to feed the developing young. Special structures on their legs allow them to carry precious pollen back home. Finding the flowers is only half the challenge. The bee must also find its way home. Remarkably, honeybees can navigate using the position of the sun, visual landmarks, and their internal sense of direction. Once home, the returning forager becomes part of another extraordinary process. Inside the darkness of the hive, bees have developed a remarkable language. A returning forager can communicate information about distant food sources through movement. The direction and duration of the dance help other workers understand where valuable flowers may be found. One bee discovers the resource. The colony responds. Back inside the hive, nectar begins its transformation into honey. Workers place the liquid into specially prepared cells. Then they fan their wings, creating airflow that helps remove excess water. Slowly, the nectar becomes thicker, richer, and more stable. When the honey is ready, workers seal it beneath a thin layer of wax. But a colony filled with honey is also a tempting target.
Guard bees inspect visitors using scent and physical contact.
If danger appears, the colony can rapidly mobilize its defenders.
Individually, each bee is small. Together, they become a powerful living defense system.
Not every bee in the colony performs the same job.
The drones are males, and their primary biological role is reproduction.
They leave the hive and gather in areas where mating flights may occur. For a worker bee, life is short and demanding. She may clean cells, feed the young, build the architecture of the colony. Defend their home. And finally, venture into the outside world. Much of bee communication happens through chemistry. Scent helps bees recognize members of their colony and maintain social order. The hive is not simply a collection of individuals. It behaves like a single living superorganism. When winter arrives, the world outside changes dramatically. The colony gathers together to survive the cold.
By generating heat through muscular activity, thousands of bees work together to protect the colony.
Stored honey becomes their energy reserve during the season when flowers disappear. Sometimes, the colony reaches a moment of extraordinary change.
A queen and a large portion of the colony may leave the old hive in a natural process called swarming.
For a brief moment, the colony becomes a living cloud. Scout bees search for a new home. When the decision is made, the colony moves as one. Perhaps the greatest mystery of the honeybee is not any individual bee. It is the colony itself. There is no single bee controlling every movement. Instead, countless simple interactions create something astonishingly complex. But the story of honeybees does not end at the hive. Every flight connects one flower to another.
In the process, bees help transfer pollen, supporting the reproduction of countless flowering plants.
From wild meadows to orchards, their work reaches far beyond the walls of the hive.
But honeybees face a changing world.
Extreme weather can reduce the flowers they depend upon. When food becomes scarce, the entire colony feels the consequences. Healthy habitats filled with diverse flowers
can provide the resources bees need to thrive.
Inside the hive, the future is always being prepared. Every new generation begins as a tiny life, hidden inside a wax cell. Protected by the colony, they grow through stages invisible to the outside world. Eventually, a new worker emerges. And another generation joins the living society. At first, the young worker remains inside. She learns the rhythms of the colony. She begins caring for the next generation. Then, one day, she approaches the entrance. For the first time, she sees the world beyond the hive. From this moment forward, her life becomes part of the endless rhythm of the colony. She will visit flowers. Then, one day, she approaches the entrance and carry the resources of the outside world back to her hidden home. At first, the young worker remains inside. The hive is a living cycle of birth, work, protection, and renewal. Generations come and go, but the colony continues.
Perhaps the most remarkable lesson of the honeybee is that its greatest strength does not belong to the individual. It belongs to cooperation.
One bee builds a cell.
Another feeds a larva.
Another brings home food. Another stands guard.
Together, they create a society capable of achieving what no single bee could ever accomplish.
And so the cycle begins again.
One tiny egg. One growing larva. One developing bee. One new life. And another journey into the world.
From a single egg to a lifetime of work, every honeybee becomes part of a story far greater than itself.
A story written in wax, pollen, nectar, scent, and flight.
Every return strengthens the colony. And every generation carries the society forward.
In the hidden world of the honeybee, survival is not the story of one.
It is the story of thousands, working together as one. Perhaps that is the true marvel of the hive. Not that one bee can change the world, but that together, millions of tiny lives can.